YouTube, what is good? Coming to you live from the isolation station right here. I'm chilling, I'm self-distancing, I'm not getting too close to anybody, not spreading germs. You should be doing the same. Actually, what's funny about this is always the isolation station, even when none of this stuff is happening. Sitting up here by myself, editing photos, editing videos, but we're taking this idea of isolation to the next level today. I took it literally over the weekend and made a photo set inspired by the word. Now today we're gonna break down the creative process on this photo set, how it came together from just literally some photos sitting on this hard drive right here that I didn't even know really existed, to a cohesive set of images that I shared on my Instagram and social media. And hopefully at the end of this video, you can take everything that I did, kind of how I was thinking, apply it to your own situation, and hopefully create some type of set of images from photos that you have sitting around. Because I know for most of us, it's driving us crazy not being able to go out and shoot, not being able to create, so this is the next best thing. And what's funny about this video, it's inspired by the last video that I made. In that last video, I talked about some things that I was doing personally to keep myself creative at this time. I gave some thoughts on what you could do to keep yourself creative, and one of those things was go through old photos, try to find new consistencies, new themes, new color palettes, stuff like that. And that's exactly what I did to come up with this, because these photos were not made yesterday, they weren't made 2 weeks ago, they were actually made in October of last year. So we're just gonna get into it today. It's not necessarily a full-on editing tutorial. There is some editing stuff I'm talking about. It's not a full-on street photography tutorial, even though I'm talking a little bit about that as well. It's like a combination of everything because of the time we're in right now. So if you do want some more specialized videos about editing, about street photography, all that stuff, I will drop some links in the description on this video. So the first thing that we gotta talk about with creating a set of photos like this is to hit the thumbs up button on this video. It's down there, it needs to be lit up blue or whatever color it turns into. Hit the thumbs up button, it helps out the video a lot. But for real, here's what I did to find the photos that ended up becoming this set of images. I sat down at the computer and just slowly started going through images over the last year, looking for anything that stood out to me. Maybe something that I hadn't seen before, maybe some interesting colors, maybe a photo that I might have started the edit on and just stopped halfway through. Whatever the case was, I was just looking for something new and something fresh. And I came across this image right here. It's a photo of a man crossing the street. The street is completely empty, and I thought to myself, when did I even make this photo? Like, what is this? I completely forgot that it even existed, and that's probably what's gonna happen to a lot of you. You see, time can really shift your perspective on your photography. At the time, I thought this photo was stupid, I didn't like it, and now I'm looking at it like, there's a lot we can do with this. So I pinpointed this as the starting point for this photo set, and what stood out to me on this photo was the fact that our subject was so isolated. I mean, this photo is like the literal definition of isolation, and we all happen to be isolated right now. Like, man, this is way too perfect. So I start going through these photos and I realized there's a bunch of photos that kind of follow this isolation theme made on this particular day. And the reason I forgot about these photos is because I actually made them when I was out with my buddy Chris' house filming a video about colors. So we were out making this video all about color photography, how to get better colors, and I made these images that were a little bit more bland, which is why I think I completely forgot about them. At the time, I was thinking these photos are worthless, they're not colorful, I can't use them in the video, and now I'm realizing we got something here. And when I went through the photos from this day, I pinpointed 3 other photos to wrap out our set of 4 photos, all with this isolation theme. So I stuck with that. The theme right here is isolation. Now, we're gonna jump into the edit on these photos. I'm gonna show you how I get a consistent edit across each one. The first thing that I do is pretty simple. I apply a crop to the photo, so now we're, framed up a lot better. The crop on this was a little bit nasty before. I was shooting at 28mm, which was pretty pulled back for this particular scene. So I crop in a little bit just to keep everything straight and make it, a little nicer of a perspective. So personally, the next step is to apply a tone curve that I use on basically all my images. I made this up, I don't know, like a year and a half, 2 years ago. There's a lot of videos on YouTube about the tone curve. For me, it's kind of guesswork when I make mine. I've made a few good ones and I just save them, apply them to the photo. The thing is, it's not a preset, it's just kind of a starting point that I put on all my photos, so each one kind of has this same starting point for the edit, and then I edit from there. So with this one, put that tone curve on there, and then I make some basic adjustments, things like shadows, highlights, whites, blacks, etc. And one other big edit I made on this was to the colors. Instead of my normal extra vibrant look, I feel like a set of photos about isolation needs to be a little bit more muted, a little bit more toned down. background. So I bring the saturation down on the blues and the greens here mainly just to kind of mute everything a little bit better. So at this point, this edit is pretty much done. It's at a solid baseline. So what I'm gonna do is take the settings from this edit and apply them to all the other 3 photos. But I'm not just gonna copy and paste all the settings. It's gonna be specific settings. So what I'm gonna do is copy the settings, and I'm gonna copy the color adjustments that I made, the white balance to make sure the white balance stays the same throughout, and I'm gonna copy that tone curve. I'm gonna apply this to each image. And then from there, I'm gonna edit each image accordingly. Sometimes certain photos, certain scenes need more contrast. Sometimes you need to take contrast out to keep this continuity amongst your photos. For me, I can't necessarily teach this. You just have to look at one image and say, does this match to this pretty well? And if the answer is yes, you're probably on the right track. If there's clearly some type of major difference between the 2 photos, you're not going to have that continuity that you want in your set of images. So from there, we copy and paste everything. We move our basic adjustments around per each photo, and now we're ready for kind of the final touch of the edit in Lightroom for each image, which is radial filters and graduated filters. So why do I use these? Because if our photo set is based around isolation, we're going to use the light in the photo and manipulate it a little bit more to increase this feeling of isolation on our subject. So on the photo of someone crossing the street, what we're going to do with these radial filters is try to isolate that subject in the middle. Make sure all the light in the photo is really drawing your eye into that person, so it's one of the first things that you see. Another example of doing this is the tunnel photo. We're going to use graduated filters to bring your eye towards the center of the photo, so the subject is one of the first things that you see. It's very subtle. It's pretty simple to do. All you're going to do is drop the graduated filter in and then adjust the shadows or highlights accordingly. I actually didn't use this on every single one of the photos. I only used it on those 2. The one of the person in the street with the light going through the scene, that one was pretty much perfect anyways. We didn't have to change much of the light around there. And then the photo of the person sitting on the ledge, there was no reason to really draw your eye in because the framing of the scene has our subject pretty much perfect anyways. So now at this point, these photos are pretty much done in Lightroom. So I'm going to bring all of them over to Photoshop to make the final adjustments to these images. Now what I'm going to do in Photoshop is I like to do a color balance adjustment. You see, color balance allows me to work in the midtones a little bit better than in Lightroom. So I'm going to make some slight color balance adjustments here, move these sliders around for the midtones, for the highlights, as well as the shadows, and really try to get the colors exactly where I want. This might be me being really, detail oriented on my own photography. So do a color balance adjustment on this photo right here, and then I take that color balance adjustment and apply it to each one of the other images in the set. So once again, we can have some continuity. And then with these at the last minute, I decided to bring the saturation down a little bit in Photoshop as well. I brought the saturation down by -10 on every image just to add more to the isolation feel of each photo. I just didn't want them to be too colorful. It's not really what you think about when you think about isolation. You think not happy. So now the last thing that I do in Photoshop is I clean up the images with ContentAware Fill or the clone stamp tool. A good example of this is the photo of this person inside the beam of light. This light pole right here, completely unnecessary, so I get rid of that in Photoshop using a ContentAware Fill. It's really basic, easy, gets rid of that light pole almost perfect, which is a huge distraction in the image. And then with that image of someone walking down the hallway, I like to use the clone stamp tool so I can stamp over some little blemishes on the ground, little things that aren't a big deal, but they really clean up the image if you get rid of them. And then our last example of using a ContentAware Fill is a big one, and that is this photo with the person crossing the street that looks like The Walking Dead, this complete isolation image that started this whole set of photos. There is one other person up in the top left. They're kind of hidden, they're on a bike, they're super easy to remove in Photoshop, so we're gonna go in there, take them out with a ContentAware Fill, and now our image is done. So now for me, the last thing that I like to do in Photoshop is go into image and canvas size to add a border. So with me, I like to use % for canvas size because when you use a percentage, it's always gonna be the same regardless of the image. So for this, we'll use 105 on the height and width, and then we're gonna do that for every photo here, and they're all gonna have the exact same size border. So from there, I'm gonna save as, they're gonna move back into my Lightroom catalog, and now we are done. That is how I created this photo set right here. That's how we kept some continuity in the edits. That's how we kept a consistent theme throughout, and that's just how I do it. I wanted to make this video as more of one of those behind the scenes examples of how everything came together, because it's so easy to see a set of images on social media and think that it's a way bigger thing than it actually was. This took me about an hour and 15 minutes to really put together, and it was surprisingly uncomplicated for a set of images that I like so much. So take everything in today's video, apply it to what you're doing. Let me know in the comments more videos you want me to make during this time of isolation while we're all chilling at home, because I am gonna be making a lot more videos. Wanted to share this one just to break it down and give you some inspiration while we're all sitting at home with a potential hard drive full of photos. So get out there, be creative. Thank you guys for watching today. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe. See you next time.